Right now, like, millions of dog owners are actively destroying their dog's joints.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
And the crazy thing is, they are doing it entirely out of love, you know?
Oh,
We
absolutely.
look at a chunky puppy, and we inherently think that we're seeing a healthy puppy. We want them thick. We want them robust.
Right, like they're little linebackers.
Exactly. We feed them like we're trying to win a prize at the county fair.
Mm.
But when it comes to our dogs, we often treat their food like it's just gas in a car.
Which is such a flawed way to look at it.
Right. We pour it into the tank, the dog runs around the yard, the tank empties, and we just, fill it up again.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we need to unpack today.
So today we are doing a deep dive into some fascinating source material from the Doberman Health Academy. Specifically, we're looking at their comprehensive notes on canine nutrition.
It is some really incredible material.
It really is.
Yeah.
And our mission today is to completely shift how you, the listener, look at that food bowl. Because filling that bowl isn't just giving your dog fuel. It is literally laying down the bricks for their physical architecture.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about shaping long-term joint health,
Yeah.
dictating the rate of organ aging, and determining muscle condition. It is literally the most powerful form of daily preventive health care that an owner actually controls.
It totally is. Because we culturally tend to, outsource preventive health care to the veterinarian, right?
That's for sure.
We think prevention just means showing up once a year for vaccines and, remembering to give a monthly heartworm chew.
Right, like checking a box.
Exactly. But the biological reality is that the nutrients you drop into that bowl every single morning, they dictate the cellular integrity of the animal.
Wow.
And when looking at a breed like the Doberman, which is sort of the primary lens for our sources today, you're dealing with an animal engineered for a very specific purpose.
Right, they are built for speed and stamina.
Yes. They are deep-chested, naturally lean, and biomechanically built for agility. They are not built for bulk. So that highly specialized physical structure requires, highly specialized maintenance.
Which brings us right to that first major hurdle I mentioned, especially when you bring home a new large breed puppy.
The growth phase.
Yeah, because there is this universal, deep-seated human instinct to want a big, impressive dog. We look at a Doberman puppy or a Rottweiler, and we project this idea that bigger is always better.
Yeah, we think rapid growth is a sign that they're thriving.
Exactly.
But pushing for rapid growth is actually one of the most destructive things an owner can do to a large breed puppy.
Wait, really?
Yes! For these fast-growing breeds, bigger is absolutely not better. Forcing a dog to grow too quickly is a highly documented risk factor for developmental joint diseases.
Like hip dysplasia and stuff.
Exactly. Hip dysplasia, osteochondritis dissecans, all those issues later in life. A Doberman's skeleton is essentially an active construction site. Their growth plates, which are, the areas of soft developing cartilage at the ends of the long bones, they don't fully close and solidify into hard bone until they are 12 to 18 months old.
Wow, so a year and a half.
Yeah. During that entire first year and a half, the structural foundation is incredibly vulnerable. If you feed a puppy for maximum size, you're just forcing a heavy, rapidly expanding body mass to rest on top of soft, unclosed cartilage.
Oh man, so the physical weight literally crushes and deforms the joint architecture before it even has a chance to harden.
Exactly. It's brutal on their bodies.
That makes so much sense. I've always noticed that commercial dog food aisles have those specific large breed puppy formulas.
Right.
I always assumed it was just a marketing gimmick, like maybe a bigger kibble size to stop them from choking or something. What is actually happening chemically in those bags?
Well, it comes down to manipulating the chemical building blocks, primarily through controlled calorie density and a highly calibrated calcium to phosphorus ratio.
Okay, calcium for the bones.
Right. Calcium gives a bone its rigid strength, while phosphorus helps form the matrix that the calcium actually binds to.
Oh, I see.
If a puppy's diet contains too much calcium,
Right.
which happens a lot when people overfeed standard puppy food or add random supplements, their bones grow rapidly but become brittle and structurally unsound.
That's terrifying.
It is. So large breed puppy formulas are engineered to deliberately slow down the growth process.
So slower is better.
Exactly. By tightly controlling the calories and the calcium ratios, the skeleton and the surrounding soft tissues are allowed to develop at the exact same pace. It ensures the frame is fully capable of supporting the muscle mass.
Okay, I hear the underlying logic, but I have to push back on this from a practical standpoint.
Sure.
Wait, if a puppy is wolfing down their food and looking up at you begging for more, isn't that biological proof that they need more fuel?
Yeah.
Like their body is clearly signaling a deficit, right?
What's fascinating here is how easily we project human psychological logic onto canine biology.
Guilt, basically.
Exactly. We assume that the sensation of hunger always equates to a physiological deficit in calories. But in a growing, high-energy breed, appetite is largely an instinctual survival mechanism.
Right, because in the wild, they wouldn't know when the next meal is coming.
Precisely. A wild canine eats everything available, and that instinct remains completely intact in your kitchen.
So just being opportunists.
Yeah. A puppy's enthusiasm for food is not a reliable internal gauge of their nutritional needs. Those begging eyes are essentially a biological lie.
A biological lie. I love that.
It's true. The dog's brain is saying consume resources, while their skeletal system is silently begging for a slower, controlled intake.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if we can't trust the puppy's appetite, and we can't trust the begging eyes, how do we able to measure if the architecture is holding up?
We have to get hands-on.
Right. It feels a bit like running a manual diagnostic check on a high-performance car.
Yeah.
You can't just sit in the driver's seat and wait for a dashboard warning light to turn on.
No, definitely not.
You have to physically pop the hood, pull out the dipstick, and check the oil yourself.
Exactly. And in veterinary medicine, popping the hood means conducting a body condition score, or a BCS.
Okay.
It requires moving completely away from the visual eye test and relying entirely on a tactile, hands-on assessment. The deep-chested anatomy of a Doberman can easily hide excess weight from a distance.
So you really have to feel it.
Yeah, to get an accurate reading, you have to run your hands flat along their rib cage. The physical sensation you're looking for is feeling the ribs under a very thin layer of fat without having to apply any real downward pressure.
Okay, so if you have to dig your fingers in to feel the ribs,
Then the dog is carrying excess adipose tissue, fat. Furthermore, when looking down at the dog from above, you should see a clearly defined waist tucked in dramatically behind the ribcage.
like an hourglass shape almost.
Yes. And from a profile view, there should be a sharp abdominal tuck sloping upward from the deep chest to the hind legs.
According to the Academy notes, this exact physique is why Doberman owners constantly get side-eye and passive-aggressive comments at the dog park.
Oh, all the time.
People think the dog is starving.
Our cultural baseline for what a normal dog looks like has become drastically skewed toward overweight.
Yeah, it really has.
A Doberman at an optimal body condition score will look undeniably lean compared to a stockier, barrel-chested breed. But that sharp silhouette, that visible tuck, is biomechanically necessary for a dog built for sustained galloping.
Right, so a lean dog is not an underweight dog.
Exactly. It is an optimally conditioned dog. However, a major misconception arises here.
Ooh, what's that?
Owners look at their naturally athletic Doberman and assume the breed's genetics make them immune to weight gain. They think they don't have to manage the diet carefully.
Ah, I see.
But the moment that dog ages, suffers an injury, or undergoes a spay or neuter procedure, their metabolic rate drops significantly.
Right, the metabolism just slows down.
Yeah. And if the daily caloric intake isn't immediately adjusted to match that new, slower metabolism, that naturally thin dog will absolutely pack on visceral fat.
And because of the deep chest cavity, that fat probably accumulates internally around the organs first, right?
Exactly. Long before it becomes obvious on the outside.
Wow. So we have the physical target locked in. We are sculpting a lean, high-endurance athlete.
Yeah.
But the physical structure of that deep chest doesn't just dictate what the dog looks like from the outside, does it?
No, it fundamentally alters the physics of what happens when food hits their stomach.
Right. So let's talk about the actual mechanics of delivering the meal.
The physical delivery mechanism, meaning meal frequency, volume, and pacing, is critical. For puppies, the digestive system is still maturing, and their blood sugar regulation is less stable.
So they need more frequent meals.
Yes, 3 to 4 small, evenly spaced meals a day. And then, as the dog reaches physical maturity, you transition to 2 meticulously measured meals a day.
Look, I get the whole split the meals concept, but let's talk about reality for a second.
Okay, sure.
Many people work 12-hour shifts. Commutes are super long. Wouldn't it be more natural for a dog to just eat one massive meal a day like their wild ancestors would?
Yeah.
Is feeding a large dog one big meal at the end of the day really a crisis?
Yes. Attempting to force a deep-chested breed to adapt to one massive daily meal is literally playing Russian roulette with their anatomy.
Seriously, just from one meal.
Yes. Breeds like the Doberman have a unique structural vulnerability due to their deep, narrow chest cavities. The stomach is suspended in that space almost like a hammock.
Hey, I'm picturing that.
If you load that stomach with a massive, heavy single meal and perhaps a large volume of water on top of it, it creates a heavy pendulum effect.
Oh, man.
If the dog then runs, jumps, or even just rolls over on the carpet, that heavily weighted stomach can physically swing and twist in on itself.
That sounds horrific.
It's a condition called gastric dilatation volvulus, commonly known as bloat. The twisted stomach traps gas, rapidly expands, and cuts off the blood supply to the heart and surrounding organs.
Wow.
It is a catastrophic, rapidly fatal medical emergency. Splitting the daily food allowance into two smaller, highly digestible portions is a non-negotiable, targeted risk reduction strategy to prevent that pendulum effect from ever occurring.
It's pure physics. I mean, you don't want a heavy water balloon sloshing around inside the chest cavity while they are moving.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of water, the sources gave a very clean biological rule of thumb for baseline hydration, right? Roughly 1 ounce of water per pound of body weight per day.
Yes.
So a 70-pound dog needs about 70 ounces of water over 24 hours.
It serves as an excellent baseline metric. You obviously have to adjust the intake based on environmental and dietary variables, though.
Like if they eat wet food.
Right. A dog eating a high-moisture, raw, or canned diet will consume less water from the bowl. A dog working outside in the summer heat will require significantly more.
Makes sense.
But monitoring that baseline is crucial because sudden deviations, like a dog draining their bowl 3 times a day out of nowhere, are often the first clinical indicator of metabolic issues like kidney dysfunction or diabetes.
Oh, that's a really good tip.
And tying back to the anatomical risks, you must heavily restrict water intake immediately before and after vigorous exercise to further minimize the risk of gastric torsion.
So, we've engineered the schedule to protect the stomach's structural vulnerabilities. We've established the daily rhythm. But preventing a mechanical crisis isn't the same as providing optimal building materials.
No, it's just the first step.
Let's turn our attention to the actual chemistry going into the bowl and the marketing labyrinth that pet owners have to navigate. I swear, walking down the pet food aisle requires a degree in advertising psychology just to decipher the bags.
It really does. The pet food industry is heavily driven by human food trends, which makes navigating the options incredibly overwhelming.
So what are we actually looking for?
The most vital piece of text you are looking for on any bag of commercial dog food isn't the giant glossy picture of a wolf.
Right.
And it isn't the first ingredient. It is a very specific regulatory phrase, complete and balanced for a designated life stage.
Here's where it gets really interesting. We read pet food labels the exact same way we look at a concert set list for a band.
How do you mean?
We only care about the lead singer. We scan the label, we see real deboned chicken listed right at the top, and we think, oh, perfect, I'm buying a bag of premium meat.
Oh, exactly.
We completely ignore the bassist and the drummer, the trace minerals, the amino acid profiles, the calcium ratios, which are the elements actually holding the entire biological song together.
That analogy perfectly illustrates the trap of ingredient splitting. The phrase complete and balanced indicates that the formula has been chemically verified to meet the exact established nutritional baselines for a dog's current physiological state.
Whether that is growth, adult maintenance, or senior.
Exactly, either through actual feeding trials or laboratory formulation. The overall chemical equation of the food matters infinitely more than whether a specific protein is listed before a carbohydrate.
And this brings us squarely into the crosshairs of the single biggest dietary trend of the last decade, the grain-free movement.
Right, the grain-free phenomenon. It's a prime example of marketing outpacing nutritional science. It was built on the flawed premise that domestic dogs are incapable of processing grains, which is genetically untrue.
Right, they aren't wolves.
Exactly. But more concerning than the marketing is the biological fallout. To remove the grains, manufacturers had to substitute other carbohydrates to bind the kibble together.
Because it still has to form a little crunchy shape.
Yes, and they overwhelmingly chose legumes ingredients like peas, lentils, and chickpeas.
Which sounds super healthy to a human.
It does. But veterinary cardiologists and the FDA began noticing a drastic spike in dilated cardiomyopathy, which is a severe weakening of the heart muscle.
In breeds that don't normally get it.
Exactly. The current leading hypothesis involves a mechanism where high concentrations of legumes in the digestive tract actually inhibit the dog's ability to synthesize or absorb taurine.
And taurine is an amino acid.
Yes, one that is absolutely critical for the heart muscle to contract properly. By trying to avoid harmless grains, Owners inadvertently starved their dog's heart of essential amino acids.
Wow. Which naturally pushes a lot of well-intentioned owners toward the next major trend raw and homemade
Oh,
diets.
yes.
They think, the commercial industry's a mess. I'll just make the food myself. It's ancestral. It's less processed. It has to be chemically superior.
This raises an important question about our underlying assumptions regarding nutrition. We automatically equate less processed with biologically optimal.
Right? Because for humans, that's usually true.
But formulating a canine diet requires rigorous biochemistry. Without the active oversight of a board-certified veterinary nutritionist, feeding a homemade or raw diet usually means an owner is just assembling meals based on human intuition.
Right. We chop up a chicken breast, throw in a handful of spinach for iron, maybe a carrot for crunch, crack an egg over it, and we think we've basically created a superfood bowl.
It looks like a highly nutritious human meal, but chemically, it is often a disaster for a dog.
Really? How so?
Well, skeletal meat like chicken breast contains virtually no calcium but is incredibly high in phosphorus. If you feed that long-term without perfectly balancing it with bioavailable bone meal or specific calcium carbonates, the dog's body will detect a blood calcium deficit.
And what does the body do then?
To survive, the parathyroid gland will literally start leaching calcium out of the dog's own skeleton to keep the heart beating.
Oh my God.
Yes, leading to severe bone density loss. You can quietly create catastrophic, irreversible nutritional imbalances over time.
That is wild.
Furthermore, raw diets carry immense food safety risks regarding salmonella and E. coli shedding. That poses a severe risk not just to the dog, but to the human sharing the living environment.
So if an owner is committed to doing a homemade diet, they really need a board-certified professional calculating the exact micrograms of zinc and calcium, not just pulling a recipe from a random blog.
Absolutely.
Now, let's talk about the macronutrient that everyone at the dog park obsessively talks about: protein. The conventional wisdom is always that more protein equals more muscle mass.
That is a fundamental misunderstanding of canine metabolism. Protein requirements are entirely dictated by the dog's daily kinetic output.
Their exercise, basically.
Right. An inactive adult Doberman, whose peak physical exertion is a 30-minute neighborhood walk, does not have the same cellular turnover rate as a working sport dog running agility drills 3 days a week.
So they don't need the same high-protein, calorically dense diet.
Exactly.
Because what actually happens inside the body if they consume massive amounts of protein but don't burn the energy? Do they just, pee it out?
The canine body does not store excess protein as a reserve of muscle waiting to be used. The amino acids are broken down, the nitrogen is processed by the kidneys and excreted in the urine, while the remaining caloric value is converted directly into adipose tissue.
Fact.
Yes, fat. You are taxing the kidneys to process expensive protein, only to make the dog overweight.
Wow.
Conversely, inadequate protein intake is equally damaging. If the diet lacks sufficient amino acids, the body will begin cannibalizing its own muscle tissue to maintain vital organ functions, leading to muscle wasting. You need an adequate, targeted protein level paired with rigorous physical conditioning to maintain that sharp silhouette.
So what does this all mean for the daily routine? Let's say you, the listener, have done the math perfectly. You've picked a scientifically backed, complete, and balanced food.
Awesome.
The portions are strictly measured. You are feeding exactly what the dog's activity level requires. But there's a hidden, chaotic variable in almost every household that completely sabotages all of this careful nutritional calculus.
The invisible saboteurs, daily treats, and table scraps.
I'm going to challenge you on this one. Realistically, nobody lives in a completely sterile, perfectly disciplined environment.
True.
You have a toddler dropping crackers from a high chair. You have a spouse who likes to share a single French fry. We're talking about tiny volumes of food. If treats are just tiny training tools, how much damage can a few table scraps really do if their main diet is perfectly dialed in?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look at the mathematics of canine metabolism versus human metabolism. A 1-ounce cube of cheddar cheese might seem insignificant to you.
Right, it's just a little bite.
But calorically, for a dog, it is the equivalent of a human eating 2.5 full cheeseburgers as a mid-afternoon snack.
Wait, 2.5 cheeseburgers?
Yes. When you slip a dog a piece of crust or a sliver of steak every evening, you aren't going to wake up on Friday and see a fat dog. But over the course of 12 months, those invisible, unaccounted for calories create insidious weight creep.
Oh, the weight.
A pound or two of gradual change is an easy course correction. But a year of unnoticed table scraps that slowly packs 8 pounds of excess weight onto a Doberman's frame, That requires a massive caloric deficit to correct. And in the meantime, that excess weight is grinding down their joint cartilage with every step they take.
And it messes up the chemistry too, right?
Exactly. Table scraps are entirely unbalanced, meaning you're skewing the perfectly formulated calcium-phosphorus ratio of their main diet.
And the brutal truth is, the main reason we give them those scraps in the first place is because they beg. They sit there vibrating, resting their chin on our knee, looking at us like they haven't seen a meal in weeks. It plays right into human guilt.
And we capitulate to the guilt every single time.
Hmm.
But we must reframe how we view begging. Begging is a deeply ingrained, heavily rewarded psychological hack. It is a learned routine.
It's not actual hunger.
It is almost never an expression of actual physiological starvation, especially if the dog is consuming a balanced daily diet. If a dog gets eye contact, verbal attention, or a physical scrap of food every time they stare at you during dinner, they have successfully trained you.
Ouch.
They learn that the routine yields a reward. Every single feeding decision you make in the kitchen is quietly a behavioral training decision.
You are actively rewarding the behavior of begging, not satisfying a genuine nutritional deficit.
Exactly.
Now, we have to discuss how this entire equation shifts as the dog enters their senior years. The Academy sources emphasize that nutrition is not a set-it-and-forget-it chore.
No, not at all.
It is an ongoing, evolving conversation with your dog's biology.
It is a totally dynamic process. A
Yeah.
specific diet and caloric volume that perfectly maintained your dog's athletic physique at 4 years old will almost certainly trigger rapid weight gain when they hit 9 years old.
Because they just slow down.
Yeah, as dogs age, their cellular metabolism naturally decelerates. Their thyroid function may slow, they sleep longer, their explosive energy decreases, and their overall kinetic output drops. The calories in versus calories out equation fundamentally shifts.
So you have to feed them less.
You must proactively reduce their caloric intake to prevent senior obesity, which drastically accelerates arthritis.
But the sources also noted that some senior owners face the exact opposite crisis. They have an older dog that suddenly starts dropping weight and losing muscle mass along their spine.
Yes, and that is a critical clinical distinction. Minor muscle loss due to decreased activity is expected in seniors.
Right.
But rapid muscle wasting or a sudden persistent refusal to eat should never be dismissed as, oh, they're just getting old and tired.
What is it usually?
Unexplained weight loss in a senior dog is a glaring red flag for underlying systemic issues like kidney failure, certain cancers, or advanced dental disease that makes chewing painful. It requires immediate veterinary intervention, not just a change in kibble flavor.
What about the supplement aisle? If I have a dog entering their senior years, shouldn't I be proactively pumping their bowl full of joint powders, high-dose fish oils, and multivitamin liquids to keep them young?
The indiscriminate use of supplements is actually one of the most dangerous trends in pet care.
Really?
Yeah. If a senior dog is eating a high-quality, complete, and balanced diet formulated for their life stage, broad-spectrum supplements are generally entirely unnecessary and can even induce toxicity.
Wow, toxicity.
For instance, aggressively supplementing fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin A and D means the dog's body cannot excrete the excess. It builds up in the liver to toxic levels.
Just like dumping calcium powder on a puppy's food creates bone deformities.
Exactly. You should only ever introduce a targeted supplement to correct a specific blood work verified deficiency and always under the direct supervision of your veterinarian.
So let's pull all of this together and distill the core philosophy. If there is one overarching takeaway from the Doberman Health Academy sources, it's that nutrition is an active, highly intentional form of daily preventative medicine.
Yes, absolutely.
You are constantly assessing the physical architecture, running your hands over the ribs, monitoring the waistline, and adjusting the dials based on age, activity, and metabolic changes. Because the specific chemistry you drop into that bowl dictates the resilience of their joints, the strength of their heart muscle, the stability of their weight, and ultimately the length of their life.
But we must remind everyone of the crucial other half of this biological equation.
The exercise.
Yes, you can calculate the caloric intake down to the single decimal point, and you can source the most biochemically perfect diet on the market, but those calories still need somewhere to go. Rigorous physical exercise and intense mental stimulation are the absolute mandatory companions to perfect nutrition.
You can't just feed them superfood and let them sit on the couch.
No. You cannot feed a high-performance fuel to a dog and then let them languish all day. The architecture requires movement to stay sound.
It's all deeply connected. The food provides the bricks, but the physical conditioning actually builds the house.
That's spot on.
Which brings us to a final thought I want to leave you, our listener, with. We talked extensively about how a begging dog usually isn't genuinely hungry. They're just running a sophisticated learned routine because it has worked so well in the past.
Right.
The sources state clearly that feeding decisions are quietly training decisions. So I want you to mull this over tonight. If that persistent begging behavior is just a learned psychological hack, what invisible lessons are you teaching your dog? And more importantly, what habits of weakness are you reinforcing in yourself every single time you step into the kitchen?